Welcome to T4G Sports. We got some exciting content. First, we're going to go over a brand new system that we're releasing to you guys. We've been talking about for over a year. Coach put it into production, worked his butt off on it. If we can get some shout outs for Coach in the comments. It's really interesting. It's a non-biased system. There is no opinion whatsoever. When we saw the numbers, we were shocked. And so what this system does is this system calculates who have you played. Okay, are they Power 5? Because you're going to get rewarded more for a Power 5. Are they Group of 5? Are they FCS? Who have they played? Are they winners? Have they played Group of 5, Power 5, and what have you? So this system dives down deep into the data, and it's a lot of work. Okay, so Coach is busting his tail off on this. And this system, like I told you guys, it is non-biased. And if you are on a bye week, just so you know, the teams that are on a bye week are going to get pushed back in the numbers. They're going to drop in the numbers because they were on a bye week. And other teams who weren't on a bye week are going to get the credit for, hey, we weren't on a bye week yet. And so it's tougher for us. This system, I'm telling you, has zero bias to it. It does not care who you are. It doesn't even know who you are. It just calculates who have you played, what have they done, and all of that. And it's very intricate. Okay, so I'm not going to go over the numbers, but you'll see the numbers to the right. And we'll go over the system more and more as the year progresses. So we have Penn State at number 1. And to us, this was shocking. Penn State came in at number 1, and it's close. But at number 2, Texas comes in. I didn't think Texas would be at number 2. Honestly, I was shocked when the system came back with that and said, hey, Tejas is number 2. At number 3, we have Washington. And remember, the teams who had bye weeks, they're going to get penalized until the weeks go on, and then they'll catch back up, right? It's all going to work itself out. So remember that. So I will add this really quick before we move on, is that our team is not going to recognize Oklahoma and Texas in the SEC because they're not in the SEC. They're not playing an SEC schedule. And it also will not recognize that Washington, UCLA, Oregon, and USC are in the Big Ten for the same reasons as Texas and Oklahoma not being registered as the SEC teams. So they do not get credit. So at number 4, we have Florida State. Now, number 5 shocked me. Number 4, not so much of a shock, but number 5 shocked me. I had to go look at them afterwards, and I was like, okay, it makes a lot more sense to me now that they're in the top 5, and that's North Carolina. So I will give them credit for their schedule thus far. At number 6, we have Oklahoma. At 7, we have Notre Dame, and think about it this way, they lost to Ohio State, and Ohio State also had a bye week, so that didn't help Notre Dame's case at all. And it didn't help Ohio State's case for that matter at all, because it's not going to give you credit for having a bye week. It's going to give the other teams more credit for not having a bye week so far, which we think is just. You know, it makes sense. It's a purely non-biased system. At number 8, we have our first SEC team. You want to guess who it is? Alabama. So I got to give my hat off to Alabama on that. They haven't played super tough opponents, but they've played tougher opponents than every other SEC school, and I'll give them credit for that. I will give them credit. At number 9, we have Ohio State. Remember, they got penalized as well, but Ohio State has played teams that win, that they know how to win games. Okay, so I will give Ohio State credit on that. At number 10, we have our second SEC team, and that's Ole Miss. At 11, we have Oregon. At 12, we have Michigan. 13, we have Utah. 14, our system came out with Washington State. I love it. At 15, you have Georgia. And so this is where Georgia got hurt in our rankings as well, because our personal rankings, because Georgia quite simply has played a very soft schedule, and we can't give them credit. Here's the thing. People say until they lose, don't drop them. I understand the philosophy on that, but it would be different if it was the same team as last year. A lot of guys on that team left and went to the NFL. There's a good portion of those guys that left. They were gone. So the new guys who didn't win the championship are not going to get the same leeway as winning the championship from last year. So I could tell you right now, in my personal ranking, Georgia dropped from number 1 because I just can't set the precedent where I'm going to reward you personally for just scheduling a very, very soft opponents. And Georgia also, they've not only scheduled soft opponents, but they've scheduled opponents that lose on average. Okay, so you have multiple things hitting you in the data points that are not helping you, and Georgia's basically walking away with playing nobody and getting a bunch of respect when we don't believe that they should. So Georgia's sitting at 15. And remember, it's all data. You can't argue it. It's literally data. Who have you played? Who have they played? What kind of conference are they in? I mean, are they winning? Are they losing? Are they scheduling a bunch of soft opponents? Our system recognizes all of that. And so Georgia got crushed in the rankings. Absolutely crushed. Same with USC, who comes in at number 16. USC's opponents that they play on average are losing opponents. They just don't win. Okay, so USC's played a very soft schedule so far. At number 17, we have Maryland, and who's getting no respect, by the way, from the AP polls. And our system's recognizing that they deserve a little bit more respect than what they're getting. At number 18, we have Duke. At 19, we have Oregon State. At 20, we have Kentucky. At 21, we have Tennessee. And at 22, we have Miami. And our system's still going to collect more data. And this is really interesting. But let us know what you guys think about this system. Obviously, it is a non-biased system. It does not care. It doesn't care if you're Big Ten. It does not care which conference you're in. It cares what kind of power your conference is. Are you in a Power 5, you Group 5, FCS? What are you in? And who have you played? Who have they played? And are they winning? Have you won? It's very simple. Non-biased system. So this was interesting. And so now we're going to jump into our personal top 14 rankings. And let's jump into it. This is a lot of fun. So for me, I have Michigan as number 1. Coach has Ohio State. Tug has Michigan. Interesting. For me, I put them up there because of that Nebraska game. They just looked consistent. They looked good. Defensively, they look good. Offensively, they look like Michigan of last year. And they have a lot of returning players as well. They have J.J. McCarthy. They got both their running backs. They just have a good team right now. I want to see that consistency continue. If it doesn't, I'll probably drop them because I'm really looking at each week. Okay, and that's how I'm doing this. I'm going through each week. What did you do for me this week? Okay, I'll take consideration of last week, but I'm not going to continue to take, a heavy emphasis on what happened last year. I'm not going to do it because if I did, I would have Georgia and Ohio State back to back because those are the two teams that when it came to playoff time, they were the two most dominant teams, and it was easy to see. Easy. If Ohio State won that game against Georgia, they won the national championship. As far as I'm concerned, TCU wouldn't have stood a chance. So I can't do that. So I'm not going to just throw up Ohio State because of what they did against Georgia. I'm not going to throw Georgia up there because of what they did against Ohio State. I'm not going to do that. That was the championship game as far as I'm concerned. And now, we're too far in the next season. Both those teams had guys move, go on to greener pastures in the NFL. And so, it's a new time. And so right now I got Michigan at number 1. So I have Ohio State at number 2. Coach has Penn State at number 2. And that's intriguing to me. And Tug has Ohio State at number 2. Big thing about Ohio State, you beat Notre Dame at Notre Dame, and I really don't think there's many teams that would have done that. I honestly don't even think Michigan would have done that. I think Ohio State is very close to interchangeable with Michigan right now. I do. I think you could even take the top 3 teams, and any one of them can be placed at number 1. And then that's where I'm at right at this moment in time. And I think Ohio State, I would love to have seen some other team go into Notre Dame and try to beat Notre Dame at home. And I think Notre Dame's a scary team. They've had a pretty decent schedule thus far. I'd say a pretty tough schedule. And, I got to keep them there. I could see Penn State for Coach. I could see them at 2. I could totally see that. So number 3, I got Penn State. I think Penn State is terrifying to play. Coach has Texas. And Tug has Penn State as well. So him and I are tied on our rankings thus far. Coach is a little bit out there more. He's got Penn State at 2. I don't have an issue with that. I really don't. I can't put Texas at 3 right this second. But I have Penn State at number 3. I just think, for one, your defense is playing great. Look at your points against. You're at 9.6 is what you're allowing. 9.6 points against. You played Northwestern. You played Iowa, Illinois, West Virginia, and Delaware. You've played a decently tough schedule. It's not like out of this world tough or anything like that. But I think their team is solid. I think it's a solid team. I think they can put points up on anybody. I think they can stop anyone with their defense. They're filled with NFL talent, and I think Drew Aller is the real deal. I think he is a good quarterback, and I think he's only going to get better. I think Penn State is a playoff contending team. They're a championship contending team this year. I think they're overall a very scary team. So for me, this one was really tough. I have Florida State at 4. I think it's interchangeable, my 4 and 5. I really do. At number 4 for coach, he has Washington. I respect it. Tug has Texas at number 4. For me, like I said, I think 4 and 5 for my rankings are interchangeable. Clemson going and playing Florida State and losing that game, I think it just showed that Florida State is a fighter, right? Florida State should have lost the game, in my opinion. They should have lost the game if Clemson just absolutely would stay out of their own way. Klubnik, in particular, not handing that ball off, rookie mistakes that are just you can avoid. The fumble 6, things that are just like, man, it didn't fall your way for one, and 2, you couldn't get out of your own way. Okay, so I'm going to give Florida State credit in that regard. They played LSU, they played Clemson, and I'll say that that's not an easy task. I think LSU was way overranked to begin with. I said that a couple weeks ago that they were way overranked. 5 was just absurd to put them at 5 in my opinion. But the AP poll, that's the AP poll for you. They're going to just give you, it's politics. That's what it is. That's the AP poll. It's politics. Don't believe it just because they say it. They say crap all the time. I mean, and how often they're wrong is insane. They're wrong so much, it's insane. Year after year, they're proven wrong. The AP polls are, in my opinion, just not good. They're not good. They're not accurate whatsoever. I think all of you guys agree with that deep down. I think you do. So Florida State, I have them sitting at 4. Coaches Washington, and Tug has Tejas. So at number 5 for me is Texas, and remember that's interchangeable with Florida State. Number 5 for coach is Michigan, and I think he's going on strength of schedule because I know he's a big strength of schedule guy, and I can tell you right now, that's probably going to be the reason as to why. And obviously, if they win out, they'll be up really high anyways. But at this moment in time, I have to agree, Michigan has not played a strong schedule, and they have gotten rewarded for it. I will say that. More over Ohio State, but that's an impressive one there. And then Florida State for Tug. Now, Texas for me, I think that they've just proved enough to be in the top 5 in this minute. I still think they're beatable. I do, but the rest of their schedule too, besides Oklahoma's going to be a true test. Aside from that, it's not really that tough of a schedule. It's a pretty easy schedule after that. And the game against Wyoming is really just what hurt it for me. I mean, that game, it was just so ignored by everybody that I just couldn't comprehend that game. I mean, it was just so bad. It was so bad. And so I had a real tough time saying you're a top 4 team with that game. I mean, with Florida State, you at least played at Boston College. Texas did not play at Wyoming. And so that to me, I couldn't get over that. I couldn't let it go. So I have them sitting at number 5 at this moment in time, and I'm okay with it. But Michigan at 5 too, yeah, I respect it too. I respect it. So I have Georgia at number 6, and I'm sorry, Georgia fans, but you guys know just as much as I do they're not playing like the number 1 team in the country. Look, our T4G ranking system has them ranked at 15th strength of schedule. But what it's not calculating is how close those games were. It's not calculating how close the South Carolina game was, or the fact that South Carolina was up 14-3 at halftime. That's bad. It's giving you the win on that, but our system's still giving you a pass on certain areas, which I'm not going to give you a pass on. And I can't do it, and I get it. Georgia fans will say, and people who support Georgia and them being number 1 will say, well, until they lose, you got to keep them number 1. They two-peated. The problem with that is it's not the same team. If it was the same team, you would have a point. If Stetson Bennett was still here and all the other guys, then you would have a point. I agree with you. But Carson Beck did not hold up that trophy last year. So what you're saying doesn't make any sense. We can't give them the same credit as the guys last year who played and then left just because they wear the same uniform or coached by the same coach and they're in the same program. No, it restarts. Everyone gets a fair shot at this. Or it would just be Ohio State and Georgia every week no matter what. And that's not the case. Ohio State got crushed in the rankings. Georgia did not. And the last 3 weeks for Georgia have been abysmal. Georgia fans, you know this. Okay, South Carolina was not a good look. And you can't keep saying it's just SEC playing, well, it's playing SEC and SEC's tough. No, because the SEC's getting the tar kicked at them this year. Okay, they're not looking good across the board. Across the board, you name it. You pick one, not looking good. And so there's no clear number one SEC team right now. There's no clear, like, they're the best, they're so dominant, they'll crush everyone. That doesn't exist. South Carolina was up 14-3 in the first half. That can't be ignored. South Carolina is terrible. And they were playing at Georgia, by the way. UAB scored 14 points against Georgia in the first half. Georgia had 28 points. You doubled them. Great. But UAB still scored 14 points on you in the first half. That's UAB. They're not a Power 5 team. They're not an SEC team. They're terrible. Okay, so that's not good. Auburn struggled against Cal and still had a good shot to win that game against Georgia. Not good. So I get it, Georgia fans. You don't want to hear this, but I cannot jump on the hype train and say you should be number one right now. You need to beat up Kentucky. Flat out, you got to beat them up. You got to beat the tar out of Vanderbilt. You got to beat the tar out of Florida because Utah did, and so did Kentucky. You got to beat the tar out of Missouri because they keep games way too close that are just not good against weak opponents. You got to beat up on Ole Miss because Ole Miss is brittle. Okay, they are not as good as people thought they were coming into this season. Tennessee, same thing. Tennessee got beat up by Florida. Okay, Florida's not even ranked right now. And you got to destroy Georgia Tech. Or else, to me, it doesn't make sense that you're number one. Because everyone else who had that schedule, and if they played like Georgia, would get crushed. But since it's Georgia, they're giving them the credit. And sorry, Georgia fans, I can't do it. I just can't do it. So at number 7, I have Oregon. Coach has Oklahoma, and Tug has Georgia. Coach is definitely tough on Georgia. I know he's a big strength of schedule guy. I know that he wants to see you also beat up on teams if they're easy. And so I can tell you that's more than likely why he's getting the ranking that he's putting the ranking for it that he's getting. And so I think Oregon, the big thing here is the CU game was not that impressive to me. It just wasn't. I know a lot of people are on the hype with that. I get it. I understand it. It's a good thing. Watching Dion do what he's doing, it's cool. But CU's got a lot of problems. I expected Oregon to do what they did. I expect Oregon to beat up on teams. Now, why they're not ranked higher is the Texas Tech game. Pretty simple. You go into Washington, though, this week, and you dominate Washington, you know what? I'm impressed. You're going to definitely jump up my rankings after that because Washington is no slouch. That is a very good team, and playing at Washington will mean something. So Oregon has every opportunity to jump up in these rankings, and they're a good team. But they have to be consistent each game. You just got to be consistent. And so for me at number 8, this was tough because I think Oregon and Washington are the same, but I have Washington at 8. I really think Oregon and Washington are neck and neck. I really do. I think after this week we'll have a lot more answers, but I think Oregon and Washington are neck and neck. Coach has Oregon, and Tug has Notre Dame, and I respect it. I respect it. And so, yeah, big thing here is the struggle against Arizona. If not, they would have been up higher. If you didn't struggle against Arizona, you would have, to me, I would have said, hey, I have to put them above Oregon. But right now, I think they're basically tied at 7 and 8. They're tied. You know, however you want to place them, I'm fine with it. But it's going to be a real interesting matchup, and I can't wait to do my predictions on this. So at number 9, I have Notre Dame. Coach has Florida State, and Tug has Washington State. Ah, man, that is interesting. Both of those are interesting to me, and I respect them. I definitely respect them. I have Notre Dame quite simply because they're really good. And I really just don't think Michigan would have beat them against that Ohio State week. I just don't think so. I don't know about any team besides maybe Penn State. I don't think Georgia would have. I just don't think Georgia would have. I think Duke is a very good football team. And I had Duke in my top 10 last week. But you know, you go and beat up a team like that, and it wasn't even beating them up, but it was just they played effectively, and they grinded until the end. And I respect that, especially playing in a hostile environment like Duke. And Duke is a great football team this year. Hopefully their quarterback is okay. That was a nasty injury. But I got to say, Notre Dame is very impressive, and I don't think anyone wants to play them. I just don't think you want to play them. They're not a fun team to play. I can tell you that right now. They're not fun. Not for 4 quarters, maybe a quarter, maybe 2, and then you'd be like, all right, game's over. Got to go get lunch, and we'll see ya. But 4 quarters, no thanks. So I have Oklahoma at number 10. Look at them go. Number 10 for Coach. He has Washington State. I love it. Holy crap. Tug has Washington. He dropped them down. And I respect it. I'll tell you what, I love hearing other people's lists that aren't just a part of the mainstream media. This is interesting to me. I will say, I think Oklahoma is a scary team that can play football with anybody. Whether they win or not is another thing entirely. I think they're one notch off from being a playoff contending team. They have a really good D tackle that they just got from recruiting, and I'll say he's a beast. He is a monster. So coming in next year, they're going to have some more D tackles. I think Oklahoma's going to be a team to fear in the future. And right now I have them at number 10. I think they could beat Texas. I do. I wouldn't bank money on it, but I think they're very capable of, and I think they're capable of beating some really good teams. I think they're on the bubble of being a playoff contending team. They're on that bubble. But they have to get more efficient in certain categories. So I like them at number 10. I'm sticking to it. And that's what I have. So at number 11 for me, I'm finally bringing in Washington State. Coach is finally bringing in Georgia. He's got them at 11. I can't hate it. And then Tug has North Carolina. I can't hate that either. You know what? I can't hate it. I could see everyone's point of view in these. I really can. I try to see as much. This is a good learning lesson for people. Try to see people's point of view. Just don't look at your own, because you're never going to be right all the time. It's just not going to happen. Even though you tell yourself that, and you may go, hey, I look pretty good in this shirt today. I'm probably right. Not always the case. So Washington State for me, they're just scary. They're a scary team. You beat Oregon State, you beat Wisconsin. That needs to be talked about. You beat the socks off of North Colorado. I mean, that's not that impressive to me, but you elbowed them in the teeth. You beat up CSU, who took it to CU. But they don't get respect for that. Washington State's a team you should fear. I would definitely fear this team. Now, I know they're lower on my list than the other guys, but, I think they're beatable. But boy, oh boy, watch out. You game plan for them very, very strategically, because they could beat about anybody. And I'm impressed with this team, and I hope they find a landing spot next year, because, man, they're good. Washington State, really good. They'd go independent, honestly, and they could probably be pretty good as an independent school. I'll just say that. But I'm impressed with Washington State enough to put. I just wouldn't have guessed that they'd be that high this year. I wouldn't have never have guessed that.
Alrighty, Tug here. I'm going to be taking over for Dodds for the number 12th pick. My number 12th pick is Miami Hurricanes. Dodds' number 12th pick is North Carolina. And Coach's is Maryland. 2 solid picks. I respect their picks at number 12. Miami has shown that they are an offensive powerhouse. I mean, they have a great QB with a 92.3 QBR, 11 TDs, over 1,000 yards passing in Tyler Van Dyke. They had a true test in week 2 versus Texas A&M. They allowed 33 points, but they still scored an impressive 48 points. Can they keep that up? Can they fix their defense? That's the big question mark. Their other true tests are North Carolina, Clemson, and Florida State. Now, North Carolina, they have shown that they can ball. They can. That should be a battle, or Miami can sweep them, but can they keep them less than 30 points? That's the big question mark. Now, Clemson, sure, they're unranked, but they're still a tough team. Clemson lost to Duke. Duke came out of left field. They're known for basketball and other sports, but not football. And Duke took it to Clemson, and that, Duke's the real deal. They took it to Notre Dame as well. Clemson also lost to Florida State, another powerhouse. That was back and forth. Clemson should have won that game. They put up a good fight, but they couldn't. They just couldn't finish. Florida State can finish, and that makes all of the difference right there. Florida State is Miami's biggest test this year. They got to travel to Florida State. That's going to be a tough one. That's where the defense comes in, and if they struggle, it can be a shootout. It's either whose defense is better, or it's whoever has the ball last. That's what I think this game is going to come down to. Whoever's defense is better, which Miami has to really fix things. Florida State has some troubles as well, but Florida State has shown that they can finish, and those better teams that can finish, those teams are better. Miami, so far, they've shown that they can finish. So the real tests, North Carolina, Clemson, Florida State. Let's see how they do. Could Miami win the ACC championship? Sure, I think so. I think they can. They have a solid run at the playoff.
So at number 13 for me, I have Alabama. I threw them back in the mix. I didn't even have them in my top 15. I'm seeing a little bit more consistency out of them. Not great. Not great. It's not the same Alabama of years prior. They're just not. I know they're ranked 11th, what have you. I don't care what the AP polls say. I'm ranked 13th. Coach has USC ranked 13th. And Tug has Alabama ranked 13th. Look at that. It's pretty snazzed up there. Just by, hey, you're getting back into the groove here. You have a loss in your schedule, okay. But, I have that Texas team up at number 5. I'm giving them some respect. So I'm okay with putting Alabama at 13. I am. You struggle this next week against A&M. I don't know. I think they could lose against A&M. I just don't know what kind of A&M I'm going to get, though. That's the problem. What the hell is that team? What's Jimbo Fisher? What are you doing? But anyways, Alabama, I have them at 13. I'm cool with that. So interestingly enough, I have Miami at 14. Coach has Kentucky. Whoa. Okay. I don't have Kentucky anywhere in my top 14. I respect that. Look at that. And then Tug has Oklahoma, bringing in Oklahoma finally. I like it. I got Miami just because Miami's scrappy, and they can score a lot of points. And I will say this, Miami, the reason you are not higher, even though you're undefeated, is because your schedule is terrible. Okay, Temple, Bethune, Miami of Ohio, come on. I mean, you beat Texas A&M, great, but it's tough. It's honestly tough to even keep you in the top 14. I'm going to be real with you. I'll say my 15th one, I'll give you an added bonus, is Maryland. I have Maryland right almost there at Miami. People don't want to give Maryland any respect, and I can't understand this whatsoever. I don't get it. But if you look at Maryland, they're 5-0. They beat the socks off Indiana, beat the socks off Michigan State, beat the socks off Virginia. They struggled kinda, I guess, against Charlotte, but Charlotte got some of those points late. It's kind of like, wasn't that amazing to me. It wasn't like they were crushing the first stringers all that much. So the Terps, I got to say, Tulia Tagovailoa, dang, that name's so hard, bro. Anyways, the Terps, I have them at number 15. And I have them basically interchangeable with Miami at 14. So that's why I wanted to bring Maryland into this as well. And Tug also has Maryland as his interchangeable one up there. And I respect it. So I'll say I'm pretty impressed with this top 14. These top 14, or I'd say top 15 teams. And I think Maryland needs to be ranked, and I think shame on UAP for not ranking them. Anyways, let us know what you guys think. What are your guys', which ones would you change?